The first anniversary of the toppling of Kevin Rudd is just days away, and the Gillard government would obviously rather talk about anything else. And they do have something they're planning to use to try to shift the focus. They're about to tick off on the deal between Telstra and the National Broadband Network. Political editor Chris Uhlmann joins me from Canberra. Chris, when will the players be signing on the dotted line?
Well, Lee, I'm reliably informed that the long-awaited deal between Telstra and the National Broadband Network will be signed off tomorrow, with an announcement expected either Thursday or Friday. Now, the $11 billion deal has been 2 years in the making. The NBN is effectively buying Telstra's customer base and renting its exchanges and the underground ducts that run through to your house. In fact, there will be two deals announced. The other is with Optus, which will be getting upwards of $500 million to shut down its cable network and migrate its 500,000 customers to the NBN. The Telstra deal is vital if the NBN is to fly. What it means is that eventually everyone who wants a fixed line will be an NBN customer, and that props up its business case. And as you point out, it gives the government something positive to talk about in a week where everyone here is obsessed with the first anniversary of the dispatch of a Prime Minister.
Indeed. Chris, on another matter, the sex scandal that rocked the Australian Defence Force Academy, that spawned a whole heap of inquiries, and one of those has released a statement today. What does it say?
Yeah, in the wake of that Skype sex scandal, no less than 8 reviews were announced by the Defence Minister, and that didn't include the police investigation. One of those was by law firm DLA Piper, and its job was to assess all the allegations of abuse that came to light after the story made headlines. The deadline for making submissions was Friday, and the review has gathered allegations from more than 1,000 people, it says, ranging from the relatively minor matters to the serious, and the allegations were levelled by victims, parents, partners, witnesses, and in some cases it says they are hearsay. The 3-person panel is assessing them and writing a report for the Defence Minister.
And finally, you'll have some new friends to play with in Canberra soon, Chris, when the old Senate gives way to the new.
Yeah, Lee, the Senate is chock full of characters, and some, I have to say, are more fun than others. And when it returns on July 4, the senators elected last year will begin their six-year terms. Now, what that means is that the Greens will go from 5 to 9 and hold the balance of power in their own right. One much-discussed senator-elect is Rhiannon, formerly of the New South Wales Upper House. Before she's even set foot in the chamber, she's been routinely described as an extremist, so it seems only reasonable to let her speak for herself. She was in the building today, and I spoke with her earlier. Rhiannon, welcome.
Hello, Chris.
Now, you haven't even entered Parliament yet, and members and senators are making speeches saying you are the pin-up for the hard left. How would you describe yourself?
I've been in the Greens for 20 years, deeply committed to our policy and our ideals, and I'm working hard to be an effective voice for New South Wales. There's a lot of work that we have to do here, and I think one of the strengths that I bring is work with community. I was in the State Parliament for 11 years, and by working with the community, we got some real runs on the board.
In Federal Parliament, what would your priorities be?
Oh, look, my priorities will be, once we have our portfolios announced, I'm keen to come back and talk about that. But right now, it is being that strong voice for New South Wales. Our economy is suffering because of the mining boom. We're very much in this two-speed economy, and there's many of our sectors like education, agriculture, even manufacturing these days are suffering. And I think that we need to be looking at measures so that the wealth that's coming from the mining industry is spread more fairly and effectively.
And what do you mean by that? Because in your maiden speech in New South Wales Parliament, you said Labor had failed in its ideals to redistribute political and economic power. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think when you look at what Labor started with, that they did have a strong commitment for the majority of people, and more as time went along, they tried to walk both sides of the road by trying to maintain their values while hanging out with corporate interests. And I think many people have seen through that. And I do believe that that's one of the reasons the Greens are winning more support, that people identify with the values that we stand for.
When you talk about corporate interests, though, this sort of language, it does sound very negative, as though there's something inherently wrong with corporations.
No, I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong. We're just talking about the system that we live under in this country, about being more fair and just. And our senators have often spoken about the need for the company tax to return to the level of 33%, for the mining resources tax to actually be implemented at the level that the Henry Review suggested. So I'm aware that I'm often misrepresented as being anti-business, but they're the constructs that often one's enemies put on you. All I'm saying is it should be fairer.
Now, you have been a very vocal advocate of boycotts on Israel. Of course, that was at a local council level. You're now in the federal parliament. Do you think that that kind of thing is what you'll be pursuing here?
Look, this has obviously been quite controversial, and I've always been very clear that this issue isn't going to be one within the Parliament. There isn't the support for the boycott for Palestine. That doesn't mean that I'm going to shy away from standing up for human rights for Palestinians, but this is a international, a very broad-based campaign that is working in a non-violent way, and overseas in North America and in Europe, it's actually very mainstream.
So you won't be pushing for it in the Australian Parliament?
No, that's not what my intention is. My priority will be supporting the plan that will come forward for action on climate change, and then a whole lot of priorities to address issues in New South Wales.
Do you think that Australia needs to look at more taxes like death duties, for example?
Oh, look, we believe that the taxes needs to move over from being based on work-related issues to being linked to resources and pollution issues. We certainly need a shift in taxes. Much of our work there has been misrepresented, but on our economic policy, I think it's very detailed, it's very impressive, and it would make a real difference to the majority of Australians if it was implemented.
And death duties?
Oh, on death duties, again, our policy is very clear there. It doesn't kick in until we've got to the 5 million threshold, and there is protection there for small businesses, family farms and family homes. And I appreciate the question because I know often our opponents misrepresent our position.
But Bob Brown has said that he can count this is never going to get up. Does that mean you don't push for it?
Well, we'll work out as a party room and with our members within the party how all our policies go forward. We have, I think it's about 43 policies. Different ones come forward at different times, but the policy is there.
You have pushed for transparency in political donations. How then does that square with the Greens getting the largest ever donation, $1.6 million, from an individual corporate donor?
Look, no rules were broken there, either of the Australian Electoral Commission or of the Greens themselves. Our position on donations is that we should be moving for a ban on donations from all corporations and other organisations. In New South Wales, we've chosen to apply that to our own party. In other states, our party hasn't, and I totally respect that.
And finally, doesn't transparency begin with access to your conferences? And at this stage, the media doesn't have access, does it, to the New South Wales Conference or the Australian Greens Conference? No,
look, good point, and that's something that I'm often asked these days, and I've actually started talking to some of my colleagues about it. Our party is obviously growing, and I think there is room that we do need to open up some of these ways that we work. So
you are, in fact, the only Australian political party which doesn't allow access to its conferences.
I don't think that's actually probably true. I think you'll probably mean of all the parliamentary parties, but where...
Certainly you are a parliamentary party.
Yes, now a parliamentary party, but when you said political parties, I think there's others that have closed doors.
Certainly, but as a parliamentary party, don't you believe that the media should have access to your...
No, that's what I just said,
formation?
that I think there is room for us to change how we work here, and it's an issue that I have down to discuss with my colleagues. I think there is a real need to be more open, and one always needs to reflect on how we can improve our own work.
Rhiannon, thank you.
Thank you.